This is a video in a series explaining how to use the Maestro PSIM. In this case, we're going to deal with the asset register. Accessing the asset register is quite simple, clicking on the assets button on the top of the desktop. Then to create or register assets, it's quite simple. You will click New Site, which will allow you to enter a new site name. All assets are associated with sites. If you require to use multiple sites, you will just list the sites down here. So it's quite simple. New site, click on the site name. The text box, type in the name of the site. If there's a schematic associated with it, browse to the schematic, click Save Site. So if I was to do a new one, I would, for instance, say 7 Drome, which is my head office, and I would say Save Site, and then I would go and pick a schematic from my schematics folder. The schematic is the one that is used to display the system during the Mimic, when using the Mimic interface. Okay, so when we deal with the Mimic interface, this will make more sense. Alright, so then it's quite simple. If I want to register a new asset, I pick the site I want to register the asset on. I click on New Asset. We'll call this Test Asset. Asset connection parameters and so on. These are all technical parameters that have to do with how the asset is controlled or communicated with. In this case, I will just give it an IP. Let's say this is an IP device, IP-based device. It does not have a channel because of whatever reason. It's using port 8080 to communicate with. Legacy reference is very specific to certain kinds of devices, usually database devices. This will be the key, or the serial number, or the reference that is used in the system that is managing that device. So in this case, I'm just going to say legacy 1, which is the serial number of the device in whatever system it's connected to. Username, I will just call it user. And pass, these will be the usernames and passwords that is used to manage this device. These are especially important in the case of camera systems, where every camera has its own username and password. So in this case, that would then, of course, then be whatever username and password is associated with the viewing of that camera. Importantly, you have to be able to tell the Maestro system what kind of device this is. So I'm going to say that this is a zone. You can add to this by just saying new type. So let's say we call this test type. Okay, then save. Then importantly, I have to tell it what kind of device this is. If I generate a new type of asset, I have to tell the system how to classify it. Surveillance assets are all cameras and related surveillance kind of equipment. Visual renders would be things like radars. Now, radar is a good example. Anything that renders a visual depiction of something that is not a surveillance device. A switch will be things like relays and controllers. So anything that can go from on to off. A sensor would be any kind of device that allows us to sense the state of something, PLCs and so on. Measurements would be any kind of asset or device that measures a value, a thermometer, aircon's temperature sensor, and so on. Presence would be any kind of thing that's got anything to do with identification of person's presence in an area. That'll be biometrics, facial recognition, fingerprint readers, card readers, and so on. An alarm would be any kind of device. It's a specialized device that if it changes state, generates an automatic alarm. So this will be panic buttons, burglary sensors, and so forth. Then we have to tell it what the brand of device is. So in this case, we're going to say it's an Active Eye branded device. This will be a list of the devices, the manufacturers of the devices that you can communicate with. Then the specific model. In this case, it's an easy one. It's just an Active Eye model, but you'll find that often in certain kinds of digital technologies, especially cameras and radio systems, the specific model might have different features. So one camera system might have a specific brand, but then model 1 might be a TCP IP camera, while model 2 might be an IP version 6 camera. And obviously the method of communication with these two devices would be different. That's why the model is so important. Very importantly, on the model itself as well is the two interfaces, two surfaces. So the first surface, or first engine, sorry, would be the surface engine. This will be the engine that will be displayed on the screen when you access this device. In the case of a camera, that will be the little viewport. In the case of a radar, that'll be the little radar screen that you'll see. When we deal with mimics, this will become very important because this is the interface that shows up when you click on the mimic or when you click it in the asset system. The control engine, in this case, is not applicable, but the control engine is the switching or controlling engine that determines the state of the asset. So in the case of, for instance, a gate controller, that will be the engine that controls the gate. A little piece of software that's written that controls the gate, and so on. And you will only just literally just enter the name of the executable there and then save it. And then having clicked saved asset, you'll see there's a new asset in the register, and that asset is now available for management by the system. It is important to understand that there are specific specialized kinds of device brands and types. For instance, one of them would be the handheld type, which is not in this list. Handheld would be the responder technology, which is a specialized kind of handheld device that goes with Maestro that allows it to use Maestro abilities on a cell phone. That is outside the scope of this video. But there will be there are specialist types of devices, brands, and models, but they will be dealt with in videos of their own. Okay.